Kerala. Then here she's sitting Urmila Pawar from Marathi. And from Assamese, they straight away wrote in English. But then, you know, the variety of perspectives we could get together. Some right from Rajasthan down to Assam, down to Dakshin Karnataka and Kerala. Of course, we tend to think that Kamala Das is still with us, but she's written such a short but very succinct, poignant piece on motherhood, what the whole experience of motherhood from being a teenage mother to a matriarch who feels hesitant to hug her adult sons in public. You know, then she takes a back seat into her life. And there's something like Madhu Bhandari's wrenching story of what happens to her 12-year-old mother who came as a volunteer of a long time. And it's not all, the book is not all sugar and spice, my mom is the best kind of a thing, because both women question their experience of motherhood, and their daughters see their mothers, and daughters and one son. Sai isn't here today, he says he was exhausted from his jury duty in Kerala, so he couldn't make it. But his letter to me, the Democratic mother, he gave us permission to excerpt from him. So we have a son speaking about his mother. And we have daughters talking about their mothers and seeing them as women, not as just their mother. And then there is a sort of self-exploration. That was really such a learning experience to read it. And Shabana, though, she's the star of the book.
In fact, some of the best responses I've had have been on Shabanaji's essay. Everybody's coming with, you know, I'll read just a line from that a little later to give you, before I hand over the mic to Shabanaji to talk about her experience with her mother. Rinki made a very good point, you know, like in the last couple of years, if this book gave Rinki and Maitli and all the other contributors this thing about somehow going through the pandemic and making through it, give that sort of thing. For me as an editor, it was even more like that, you know, like I was at an event last week in Kolkata and I was thinking that these 2-3 books that we have published in the last few months and which we worked in the worst phase of the pandemic is what actually kept me sane, you know, kept me looking forward to a day like this probably. So it's if the editors and the authors have actually put that much work and survived this as an editor, as a publisher, we have also sort of gone through this phase only on the strength of books like this. So one of the things about this book, and I'll come to that, is you know, as Maitli said, it is not all sugar and spice and everything's nice sort of thing. And you know, Shashi Deshpande's first essay in this book is, you know, we learn about motherhood, about being mothers from our mothers. And what were the nuggets of wisdom I picked up from my mother? I learned that a mother is like God. I learned that a mother is constantly sacrificing herself for her children. I learned that a mother is one's refuge. I learned that childbirth is painful but joyous. I learned that love springs naturally and spontaneously in you. I learned that a mother can never be unjust or unfair. And was that the reality? I saw, even as a child, that mothers often tire of their children, that sometimes they're so tired that they say things like, oh God, what do you want now? And why don't you go out or even get out of my sight? This is that sort of a book. It takes in the experience from all perspectives. So we'll talk about all of that, and Deepa's essay is one of the most brilliant essays in that book, which addresses this aspect of, you know, not being a mother. But I'll come to Shabanaji. Shabanaji, the first line of your essay is, her fragrance preceded her, Khas in the summers, Mitti in the rains, Shamamatul Ambar in the winters. What a beautiful way to describe one's mother. Could you please talk to us, tell us about your experience?
But before I say that, I think this book is as much a testimony to both Rinki and Maithili and their immense persuasive powers, as it is to the subject itself. I think to write about your mother and to write honestly and to write succinctly is can only happen, for me at least, when a deadline is pushed in front of me, as Maithili did. Shabana, you have to do it now. Okay, so Shabana sat up and started writing, and I wrote it in one go. You know, my relationship with my father is very celebrated, but the fact is that I had an extremely intimate and a very warm relationship with my mother, who was quite remarkable in many ways. And so when I just picked up pen to paper, the first thing that struck me is that her fragrance preceded her. She was a woman of great aesthetics, and I always associated fragrance with her. So it came from that. What I find quite remarkable about my mother is that in every way she was, you know, a complete homemaker. She was a very good wife, a very good partner, a very good mother, but at no point did she let that get in the way of her work. So she was one of those women who managed to create space for herself and her own identity, and yet she was able to do all these other things. I remember once when I told her, I said, "Mommy, what is it that you, when you look back on your life, what do you think is the most satisfying thing that you've done?" And she said, you know, she didn't say my husband, she didn't say my children, she said my acting. And that's what I find really, really quite remarkable about her. And the fact that, like I've said in the essay, she was blunt to a point. I mean, she could put you really in trouble, which you will know when you get to read
Your
the book.
experience of your reaction to Fasla was quite that being your first film.
No, but for that I have to first say what she said about me, Ankuroni, then Fasla. Okay, so this mother of mine, this actress whom I admired a great deal, saw my very first film, Ankur. And she was sitting a couple of rows before me. And she turned around and she saw the film and she just said, "Shabani, you're a very good actress and I'm very proud of you and this is a very good film." And I sort of sunk into my chair that all kinds of people are looking around, ki kya hai kya aakhir ye, kya bol rahi hai? Anyway, 2 months later, I took a very confident film to another film that I'd done, which is Fasla. And exactly with the same tenor and a voice, she said, "Shabani, ये इतनी बेहुदा फिल्म है और तुमने इतना बेहुदा काम किया है कि अगर तुमने मुझे ये फिल्म पहले दिखाती होती तो मैं तुम्हारी शादी किसी लंगड़े लूले पहले से कर देती, लेकिन फिल्म इंडस्ट्री पे नाजिल नहीं करती." So she was exactly, you take it or leave it, that kind of person. So she was not one of those Nirupar Roy characters from Hindi films, I can tell.
And also she didn't quite take your tantrums very well. You know, she could put you down on tantrums. Also, you mentioned in one case about.
I don't know whether I mentioned that in my.
Yes.
Because I think you said you're having breakfast, and then your brother Baba
Oh my God! I've opened up all my secrets in this book. I don't remember. Oh.
She picked up from what place they put it in, and you thought she didn't love you.
No, that's not the real incident, which is very beautiful, is that there was a period when I started becoming very rude because I felt that my mother loved my brother more than me. And so I was behaving very rudely, and so she called me. I was 9, imagine. And she said, "What's your problem? So, why are you behaving so rudely?" So I said, "Because I think you love Baba more than you love me." So she says, "See, I'm your mother, but I'm also a human being. you're a very rude and obnoxious girl, and that's why I don't like you. Your brother is, that's why I don't like you. Your brother is a very well-behaved and a very gentle boy, and so obviously I will react to him like that. So imagine if your own mother reacts to you, what will the world do with you if you continue to behave? Let me tell you, from next year onwards, I gave up all my rudeness and everything. And then when I tell her, I say, Mom, how could you have the guts to say that to a 9-year had for me and that she had grounded me with? Then she could be totally blunt. And so if any of your children are behaving rudely, let me tell you, follow Shaukat Cafe.
Shabana ji has a great line there. It says, her mother told her, it's good you learn early in life that emotional blackmail will never work. Coming from this wonderful reminiscence, I'll come to Deepa. Maithili writes in her introduction, Deepa Gehlot is the dissenting voice. Hers is a rational repetition of essentializing motherhood as something without which a woman is incomplete. Deepa, your take on it, which I found really stunning, that in a culture like ours, somebody could actually put forward a take like that.
I think that I've always said that in our culture we deify mothers, and because you have created this aura around motherhood, it becomes imperative for women, especially married women, obviously, who feel that even after you have to have a child, otherwise you are incomplete, and what will the neighbors say, and what will the in-laws say, and quite often they may not be prepared for motherhood, and they may not be willing to take on the responsibility, and still it's something that is forced onto them, and the maternal instinct may not be part of their psyche, but they are expected to do it because that's what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, if they don't, then society will say, oh my God, this selfish, wicked woman doesn't want to be a mother. And selfishness is the word described most often for women who don't want to have children, or other couples who don't want to have children. How can we be so selfish? And now more than ever, and I've ended my essay saying, now more than ever, it's foolish to bring children into this world. I mean, you don't know when the child is going out whether it's going to come back. Because there are, look in America, school shootings, there's pandemic, there's terrorism, there's war. There's a huge burden on Earth's resources, and you want to bring a child into this world. And speaking for myself, I think it just so happened that I had a very busy career, and my friends got married before me and had children. And without exception, they would in their weak moments would tell me, "Arey Baba, if I didn't have this kid, I would have, my career would have taken off, and my marriage would have been happier, and I wouldn't have my in-laws on my back all the time." And not a single woman, my friends, I'm not talking about the whole world, were happy with the experience of motherhood. They had to pretend to be happy, and they had to pretend to be good mothers because, well, again, that was expected of them. But if they could go back and undo, this, at least half of them would choose not to have children. At least from that, I'm judging by what they would tell me. And I said in the earlier Zoom thing, one of my neighbors who was the one who told me, "Arey, tera kya hoga? There's a koi nahi hai. You should have had children." And I said, "You have children, and who's here looking after you?" And she said, I feel jealous of you. अब मुझे लगता है कि तू कितनी सुखी है. So I'm being facetious about it, but I gave it a great deal of thought, and I realized that I'm not going to give in to social pressure. I'm not going to something which ultimately is going to make me unhappy, And because of that, I think I could live a life more or less of my own choosing. I say more or less because of course other factors come into play, but I think I'm happy, and I don't regret it for a minute that I chose not to have children.
You have a preface in the book, but you haven't spoken about your experience as a daughter or a mother. Why is that? We have had this conversation, but I'd like people here to know so that they don't blame their editor here for not including.
I'm on the hotline with all your daughters. Remember that.
I think it's in the making. Yes, if you have a reprint, which I hope you do very soon, all the should be sold.
Yeah, please buy the book and make the reprint happen.
Yeah.
You know, so that we can include Rinky's essay on
My story is ready.
Yeah.
I'll add something to what Deepa said. Nowadays I see young women, they're agonizing over motherhood. They read so much of child psychology, say, I do this, but what I traumatize my child. And then just, not just Freud is very long time ago. Right now there's so much of pop psychology and articles, they're saying you're going to mar your child for life if you do this. So the amount of guilt a woman feels when she's having a child, and if I do this, what will happen to the child? You know, that kind of a fear, if I was in the group, I could have been like Deepa, I said, I'm going to have a child, I don't know, I'll have to live with guilt all my life if my child didn't turn out well, you know. I mean, I really feel that there's so much of pressure, some of which is self-taught, and some of which is the media created thing that, you know, mothering, not parenting, it's mothering. It's not so much that both the parents are responsible for a child's emotional and intellectual growth. All the pressure is on the woman to be a good mother, that you make the child. And that's too much of a burden for a woman to take on. She has other interests. That's what Sashi Deshpande writes in her. You know, it's a kind of an overview of motherhood. Not just her personal thing, but the observations about motherhood. You make motherhood your be-all and end-all of your life. You'll be sort of destroyed. Hello. Sorry. That's what she said, motherhood can devour a woman and her children. That's what she writes in the book. And so, as I said, the book has many points of view. You have celebratory articles on the mothers who shaped them, and also critical articles and anger on behalf of their mother. Why did my mother protest? Why did she take all this? That burden.
Matthew, would you like to talk about your mother? Because Matthew's essay in this book is one of the most visual essays, along with, I think, Vaidehi's essay. It's almost like you can picturize, somebody shooting the whole thing. It comes alive. So if you could talk about it, because it's such a fascinating story at the end of the day.
I mean, I was wondering whether, as an editor, whether I should write or not write. Then Rinky said, no, you better go ahead and write. And I've written a smaller piece of this sometime in another version. Then I found that my mother was a 17-year-old studying. She just finished her intern in Mysore. She grew up in Hyderabad, then went to Mysore. And she married this man. My father was 16 years older than her. He's left children. Voluntarily. Her parents left it to her. They knew the family, and when the Rishta came, they said, why do you want to? It's up to you. Because she was the first born and very pampered. She used to go to Maharashtra's college. She had one of the Laureyas, the violinists, that kind of a thing. And then she said, I mean, I found her idealism and her reasons I found as a teenager. I asked her when I was a teenager, why did you marry daddy? I mean, he was so much older than me. She was a very pretty woman, very accomplished woman. I said, why did you? She said, it's such a naive answer. So many, her brother, my mom was part of the underground. He was a cart carrying computers, fighting for the freedom movement. She said, I've seen so many people fighting for freedom. I'd like to be a mother to be motherless. I said, this is like what? But then she had the own insecurities. I described how she overcame, because she wouldn't, we never called her mommy, we called her Kaki, like my brothers and sisters. She never was the equal, I think she is like my, what they call the stepbrother, half brother and sister. But my sister was such a surrogate mother to me, she was 10 years older. But then she was very conscious that she should be over-demonstrating the affection to her biological children, and then feel that, she wanted to do this even as from the back step, I think. And I think that's right. So that's what I went on in that book.
Really, among all the other brilliant essays here is Manu Bhandar. Rinki, if you'd like to talk about it, it's such a stunning piece of, and I think it's the one gem here of all the gems. It is the one gem that really stood out from the books. It's a fantastic story. If you just talk about
I
it.
mean, Manmuji's story is very cinematic in a way, and of course very dramatic. What she went through, what her mother went through, and at the end of the day, Manmuji was so angry with her mother for putting up, because she would protest on behalf of her mother. When the father would not give her enough money to buy slippers, stone slippers, all throughout. But the way she's brought it out is amazing. What Manmuji has written is, surpasses. I mean, it stunned me, and I was in the process of translating. Sometimes, I just stop and say, how do you translate this? Sentiments, what she's come across, what the emotions that come through. It was very difficult work, but at the end of the day, I am very proud that we have included that piece. Shabana, it's fantastic.
And then what her mother had to go through.
Oh my God, yes.
That's such a...
Absolutely. It is another saga.
And I think all of you should buy the book to read that story. If there was no other story here, that story alone would have made this book. Fortunately, there are 24 other great stories. You should actually buy this book.
First of all, I want to thank Ji, Shabana ji, our publisher, for international publication, and my all writers who wrote here in the book. But please forgive me, I am very comfortable in Hindi. हाँ, क्या होती है? हम जब स्कूल में थे तभी पोएम्स आती थी माँ के ऊपर, और माँ इतनी प्यारी, इतनी प्यार करने वाली, उसके वर्णन हमारे टीचर पढ़ते थे, या किसी पोएम ऐसी होती थी कि माँ गुजर गई है, बच्चा माँ की याद में उसको याद करता है कि मैं कैसे जन्म ले और मैं तेरा बच्चा कैसे हो जाऊँगा वगैरह, तो वो सुन के हमें रोना आता था। लेकिन मुझे तभी रोना आता था, लेकिन मैं जब घर जाती थी तो मुझे मेरी माँ को इस तरह का फीलिंग कभी लगता नहीं माँ के बारे में, क्योंकि मैं जिस समाज से आई हूँ उस समाज में, दलित समाज में, मेरे घर में मेरे पिताजी टीचर थे, हम 3 भाई 3 बहनें थे, लेकिन एक बहन की शादी हो गई थी, एक भाई छोटा उसका देहांत हो गया था, और हम 4 भाई बहनें थे। तो मेरे पिताजी ने मेरे मदर को बोला था कि बच्चों को पढ़ाओ, कोई भी हो, लेकिन मेरी माँ अनपढ़ थी तो वो टोकरियाँ बुनती थी, तो टोकरियाँ बुन के वो हमारा निवाला करती थी। तो खाने में ऐसी वैसी चीज़ होती थी, और बच्चों का ध्यान तो खाने में ही रहता है, तो मुझे लगता था अरे क्या ये बनाती है। और मैं अभी ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लेंगी, क्योंकि उसमें ज़्यादा टाइम देगा मैंने कभी ऑफ माई लाइफ क्योंकि मेरा आत्मकथा लिखा है, तो उसमें सब दिया है। तो माँ मेरी टोकरियाँ बनाती हुई एकदम ऐसा, मेरे पिताजी भी मैं 3rd स्टैंडर्ड में थी जब वो भी गुजर गए, तो उनकी याद में रोती थी। मेरा भाई जो गया उसकी याद में रोती थी, उसका रोना हुआ चेहरा, और वो काम करती है, उसके कपड़े अच्छे नहीं हैं, और हमारा स्कूल था, उसको रास्ते रहने का ठिकाना था, उससे रास्ते से स्कूल के बच्चे आते जाते मेरी माँ को देखते थे, तो मुझे बहुत ही बुरा लगता था कि मेरी माँ बुरी है, खाने पीने में भी अच्छा नहीं बनाती थी, और हमको उल्टा वो कैसी भी भाजी या रोटी करती थी तो खाना हमें दीवाला गले में जाए, इसलिए स्टोरियाँ बनाती थी, और स्टोरियाँ बनाती थी, तो वो स्टोरियाँ हमारी याद में होती थी। लेकिन वो उसके बारे में का चीज मेरे मन में, मैं जब बड़ी हो गई, मुझे नौकरी लगी, मेरा बेटा नौकरी करता था, मुझे बच्चे हो गए, तब मुझे लगा कि मैं माँ को दिखाऊँ कि बच्चों को किस तरह पाला जाता है। तो मैं जानबूझ के मेरे बच्चों को कपड़े अच्छे पहना के, खाना वाना गुस्सा आता था कि ये अभी मेरा भाई सर्विस करता है, उसकी डीजल में सर्विस करती है, कमाते रमाते हैं, तो अभी ये क्यों करती है, काम करती है, तो कभी भी मुझे बहुत उसका गुस्सा आता था। लेकिन बाद में मैं बड़ी हो गई, मेरे बच्चे बड़े हो गए और मैं पूरी मेरे माँ की और में वैसे ही रही। मैंने प्यार को मम्मी को इतना नहीं दिखाया और उसने मुझे नहीं होगा। मैं जब बीमार पड़ती थी तो वो आती थी, पट्टी बट्टी रखती थी, टेम्परेचर देखती थी, तो उसका स्पर्श अच्छा लगता था, लेकिन प्यार इतना लगता नहीं। मैं बड़ी हो गई, मेरी भी लड़की आ गई, मेरी यहाँ एक फ्रेंड आ गई है, वो कोई टेस्ट है, हमारी गिरा बंसोड़े बहुत को लेकर आई है, लेकर पढ़ाई जाती है और यहाँ भी मुंबई में वगैरह उसकी पढ़ाई जाती है, कभी जाती है। तो उसने मेरी माँ को देखा, मेरी माँ आई थी, जब मेरा लड़का मेडिकल में सेकंड ईयर में था, मेरी लड़की इधर आई है कि बाकी का चीज प्रोफेसर है, तो वो और छोटी बेटी, दो बेटियाँ और मेरा एक बेटा, तो उसका और उसका जब ये हो गया तब मेरी माँ कैसे रोती थी, क्या करती थी, वो क्यों नहीं, उसका कुछ मेरा ध्यान था और वो टोकरियाँ खोदने में अपना क्यों समय निकालती थी। ये सब मैंने माँ को पूछा था, माँ तुम बताओ कि माँ होने में क्या हो, पहले बता, मुझे लगा ये क्या बताएगी, तो उसने बोला माँ होना मैंने सूली पे चढ़ना, इतना आसान शब्द में उसने बताया, सूली पे चढ़ना, और वो सूली पे थी, तो वो क्या बोली थी वो बाद में मुझे बहुत कठिन था और आज भी, आज तक मैं मेरी माँ को याद करती हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Wonderful incident that you talked about and how supportive she was as a mother is pertains to your school and the time that you got 0 in all subjects. Would you like to talk? Sorry, I had to repeat that.
You know, my father was a member of the Communist Party, and we were living in a commune. Till the age of 9, I used to live in a 180 square foot room, which was given to 8 families, but there were people like Sardar Japti, Kefiyat, etc. We had one toilet and one bathroom for 8 families. So obviously, money wasn't in my father's pocket. So I think they decided that they should put me in a Urdu medium government school when I was 3. So I would cry every single day, drag my feet, and not want to go to school at all. And when my first term results came, I got 0 in every single subject. That must be a record of kind choice. Now look at this mother of mine. I mean, it was really amazing, her observation. She said, my child is not a duffer. If she's got 0 in every single subject, she's protesting. Can you imagine for her to have that understanding? And she said she's protesting and we have to pull her out of that school. Okay, isn't it amazing? Absolutely. Really.
It's a wonderful aspect of motherhood. Maitri, one of the things that I wanted to ask and which I put right at the outset is why the oldest love story? What?
It is Rinky's idea. We had some working titles and then I said, what do we do? and all kinds of combinations. They all sounded very convoluted and weird. Then Rinki came up to talk about it. No, Rinki is at the credit.
Am I right or not?
Correct? Correct.
And since you're calling it the oldest love story, one of the things that strikes me is that there are just two men in this anthology.
Yes.
Would you like to? But that seems like an anomaly, like particularly in the Indian context. Why just two men with 22 women talking about their mothers?
Shantanu, this is not tokenism. It was very deliberate. Said's story had to be shared.
Of course.
And also I reached out to Amit, who's a very dear friend, Amit Chaudhary. And I know that it was his mother was one of my closest friends, and the bond they shared. I thought he would produce a something, but instead he sent me a poem, which is very welcome. So that's it.
Already to say that we had already many. We didn't want to make it such a huge tome that we had already. They said we had pruned earlier. We had already pruned some of the other stories. We said, okay, 24 is a good number now. We can't make it into a huge tome. And then there could be, then I said, it's just happened that all of them have happened to be women. And Saeed's story, I fell in love with that book when it came out. Amazing. And Jennifer very kindly sent it. I was hospitalized and I'm just recovering at home, and that was the time I read, I don't know, I would finish a book in 2 days, and I said, this is wow, Then he said, I asked him, will you write? He says, no, take some from my book, what you want. And there are so many other lovely incidents that we said, okay, we thought we can't let it go on for too long. So here's another recommendation, go and buy Said's book and read that also. And another thing, maybe there's Shantanu had asked this question earlier, why not many men writers? We felt that men may not be able to be that objective about their mothers. Maybe the fear of the Oedipal complex was there somewhere, that they may not be able to see their mother in, because many of the women writers have been able to see their mother not as mothers, as I said, but as women in particular circumstances, what shaped them into what they were. And it was also like a historical record, like Manu Bhandari's story is about what happened about 120 years ago. You have the social history of the country in different parts coming through in the book. So then we said, maybe men may not be...
We can't hear a thing.
Hello?
We can't hear a thing.
Hello, can you hear me now? Oh, sorry. So I was unconsciously perhaps giving into the bias that men may not be able to be objective about writing about their mothers, because there is this mere paas maa hai, as he said, that possessiveness about the mother, and may not be able to see her as a woman in her own right. I'm not saying that all men are like that. Where Said says disproves that. Okay. So that was the thing, and as I said, it was a question of not making it a too large a book. And I suppose marketing also becomes difficult if you produce a huge tome. And we didn't want the book to be bound by any feminist ideology. If there's feminism in the stories, it comes naturally, organically through the essays. Nobody is consciously making a feminist statement. And we didn't want to be bound by ideology or a theoretical framework in which we had to fit all the articles. Each story is organic, and the feminism in it is personal, and the personal is always political. So you have that connection.
Before we have opened this up to the audience, just a couple of more. I'd love, Shabana ji, if you could read a short passage from your essay. I think that would be lovely.
Each essay is followed by a self-portrait. We didn't want to have, just the dry
biographical details of the writers, because these are personal essays. We said that you write a self-portrait of yourself at the end of each essay. So Shabana's is brilliant. So I request, I mean, this is my personal farmaish, that you read, you read that part.
Yeah.
read another bit from
Absolutely,
Okay, please.
please. No, we can't have
Totally.
enough of you reading.
When Javed and I were getting married, a wise old aunt said to him, "Watch Shaukat closely. If you like her, marry Shabana. Because with age, the wife grows to be exactly like her mother." I think Javed was shortchanged, poor fellow. Because although I've started bearing a striking resemblance to Mum, she was a much more evolved person than I am. She was wise. I continue to be impetuous. She was very forgiving. I tend to be so, not because I'm compassionate, but because I have such a weak memory that I forget and so forgive. She had one big weakness though, and that was her love for saris. I often used to tease her that if there was a competition, the sari would win over her love for kafi. She had started writing her memoirs when Abba was alive. After he passed away, she couldn't bring herself to write a word. After much coaxing and cajoling from Javed, she picked up her pen again and completed Yaad Ki Reh Guzar. It has been translated into Marathi, Gujarati, Hindi, Tamil, Japanese and English. It was selected by 14 universities in the USA for referential reading in the South Asian departments, for recreating the history of those times in a voice that is distinctly female. Amartya Sen was kind enough to write a blurb for its English translation, Kafi and I by Nasreen Rahman. And this is what he said: "To say that this is a lovely book would be an understatement. It is an enchanting recollection of the life of a hugely talented and sensitive human being shared with a great poet. They were united not only by love and marriage, but also by an individually assessed joint commitment to social change, artistic creativity, and personal and political ethics." In this excellent translation, we have a lively account of an important part of Indian history, fired by sympathy, inspiration, and imagination, but tempered by the hardship of reality. Excitedly, I rushed to her room to give her the news. "Who is Amartya Sen?" she asked. I proceeded to tell her that he's a Nobel laureate, a world-famous economic, etc. Duly impressed, she said, "वो तो बहुत बड़े आदमी हुए ना?" I said, and she clapped her hands in delight. That evening, she came back home armed with 16 sarees that she had bought at one go. 16 sarees. I exclaimed, "Mummy, in my life, I have never bought 16 sarees at one time." Back came her cocky answer, "In your life, Amartya Sen has not praised you either." Till afterwards, she didn't even know who he was. This is who she was. Okay, now it's very short about me, I'll tell you. I am cut from the same cloth as her, but who am I? I would say I'm a woman, an Indian, a wife, an actress, a Muslim, an activist, etc. My being Muslim is only one aspect of my identity. But today it seems as though a concerted effort is being made to compress identity into the narrow confines of the religion one was born into, at the absence of all other aspects. This is not the truth about India. India's greatest truth is her composite culture. The Kashmiri Hindu and the Kashmiri Muslim have much more in common with each other because of the Kashmiriyat than a Kashmiri Muslim and a Muslim from Tamil Nadu, in spite of them sharing a common religion. To me, my cultural identity is much stronger than my religious identity. I love the Urdu language. I enjoy eating biryani. I revel in wearing a gharara. But I don't read the Quran or offer namaz. So what does it make me? Figure it out. And next time you rush to stereotype a community, remember that a civilized society must not look for homogeneity in the garb of nationalism. My mother taught me that identity must not be a melting pot in which individual identities are submerged. It should be a beautiful mosaic in which each part contributes to a larger whole, different but equal.
And one final thing before we have the audience with their question. I'm sure all of you are eager to ask. Sarojji, since you are also here, if there is a little that you could talk about. Okay. In that case, I'll open up the floor to the audience. If any one of you has any questions for Meenakshi.
I haven't read the whole book, but it's fantastic. And I just wanted to pick up on what Deepa said a little while ago. There was a stunning chapter by Sita Bhaskar, which talked about the absolute horror, the revulsion, the guilt, and a mixture of many things of the kind of son that she produced because of some incidents that happened. And I somehow had the strange, odd feeling that this probably different variations of this were happening with different mothers in different ways.
With all responsibility for children of the family, and we seem to equate words like sacrifice, kindness, compassion, generosity on the woman, and by association the mother, which almost seems to say that men can then compartmentalize these things in the women's jhola, in the women's box, and then they can go out and go to war and conquer the world. And if a woman protests, they'll say, but what more do you want? You have a child, right? Your creativity is fulfilled by the child. Your life is fulfilled by the child. So let us go out and do things and make inventions and make war, and you remain this sacrificing, compassionate mother. And if you're not, then you are the bad woman. I have no responsibility in this. I mean, the father, you hardly ever say or anyone talk about a bad father, but it's always a bad mother. I mean, a father can abandon the family and go away, and they'll say, oh, something wrong the woman must have done, no? That's why he left her. But if a woman does the same thing, it's like bad woman, bad mother, cruel, selfish, the whole thing. So I think this compartmentalizing of traits, rather than gender, whatever equality, that is more bothersome. That you pin all these things onto the woman and then expect that she has to live up to it because this is what you've imposed on her.
It's very painful. Only the three people who are involved know what it's about. But what she did do is, at no point did she fill the children's ears about me, which was really generous of her. And I think in the beginning they did struggle a little bit because they didn't obviously want to call me auntie, and they didn't certainly want to call me mummy too or whatever. And so I remember Farhan was very small, and at one point I said, why don't you just call me Shabana? And I could see that he was really relieved. Something as simple as that, and to this date they call me Shabana, and I have a relationship which is very beautiful with both the children. And when Zoya speaks about it, she says that obviously in the beginning there was a lot of resentment, and but she said that because I didn't push, I didn't try to please, I sort of left them and let them develop their own equation before they were ready to accept me. It's a very beautiful relationship, but really I give Honey the most credit, then Javed, and then myself for it.